Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Clutch Conversations. It's your boy Mike. We are back at you one more again, live on a Thursday night, man. I hope y'all feeling good, man. How you doing? How you feeling? I know I'm feeling good, man. Y'all ready to do this? I know I am, man. Ready to kick it with the homie Kai from Lucas Landon Rolls. But first and foremost, man, you know how we do. Shout out to my lovely wife, Takara. Always holding us down in the comments and holding the team down in general. Y'all make sure y'all show us some love in the comments, man. Drop some love in the comments. I appreciate it. Also show the channel some love. Hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. And everybody make sure you smash that notification bell so you can get notifications every time we drop a video. For the audio only game, audio recorders of Clutch Conversations are now available on all major podcasting platforms. So make sure you go check it out. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. So make sure you go out there and check that out. When you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps us out. We really appreciate the feedback. We really appreciate the support. Speaking of support, if you're involved in this reptile hobby in any shape, form, or fashion, make sure you're supporting US Ark and US Ark Florida. The links for both organizations are in the description of this video. If you're not a member, please go grab a membership. If you're able to donate what you can, and definitely spread the word. Encourage everybody who is involved in this hobby to join US Ark. We need as many members as possible, so definitely make sure you go out there and help support the organizations that are fighting to protect our rights as reptile keepers. So definitely tell a friend, keep the word going, spread the word. Got a lot of folks in the chat that I want to say what's up to, do some shout outs. Chat going crazy. Starting from the top, Legends, what's good? Thanks for coming out. Vickers Exotics in the building. Thanks for coming out. Eric, what's good, homie? Thanks for coming out. 905 Royals, Vern in the building. What's good? Thanks for coming out. The big homie, Kike, Boza Balls. Thanks for coming out, homie. Let's see who else we got. Dylan, what's good? Caju's Constrictors, thanks for coming out. Frankenstein Morse, thanks for coming out. Low Life Exotics, Tom, thanks for coming out, bro. Earns Exotics, thanks for coming out. And if it's your first time, please subscribe. Y'all definitely hit that like button, hit that notification bell. Appreciate it. Jeremy, what's good, bro? Thanks for coming out. PA in the building. Scooters Serpents, what's good? Thanks for coming out, fam. We got the guest in the chat showing love. Kai, what's good? The big homie Wiz in the building. Again, what's good, bro? Thanks for coming out, fam. Who else we got? Man, chat going crazy. I'm trying to make sure I get everybody. Bosa, what's good, bro? Thank you. Appreciate the super chat. Pied and Joy Reptiles, thanks for coming out. What's good? What's good? Elias, what's good, bro? Thanks for coming out. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the support. We're going to bring the guests out in just a second, but first, let's kick this intro.
Baby, won't you listen to me? I got that flavor. I know you're dying to feed. I ain't no dancer, just got some hip in my feet. Now throw your hands up. Ooh, you bring the lighter, I got the fuse. You make a fire, I'll add the fuel.
Oh my gosh, my stomach hurts.
Episode 57, Lucas, Landon, Royals. What's good, bro? What's good? How's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Good, man. Good, man. How you feeling?
Pretty good, pretty good. Let's do this. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Been looking forward to it all week. Shout out to Creative Royals. Appreciate it, Elias. Appreciate the super chat, man. I really appreciate y'all support, man. It's all love, man. I definitely really appreciate it. Appreciate it means a ton, man. Welcome to the show, man. Good to have you on the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. So, for those that don't know, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
All right, so my name is Kai. A lot of people think my name is Lucas because of the brand name. Lucas, Landon are my kids, and then of course Royals stands for ball pythons. And I purposely made that name because I wanted to, have an activity for the whole family, and also to be focused on ball pythons because I know my mind can wander and go on to other species, which kind of already has. But I mainly breed ball pythons, and I do it in PVC enclosures that I build myself, and I have videos of building and creating the PVC racks and then all the clutches and everything. So you guys can check out my channel. I do all my clutches, being very transparent with all my breedings. So, there's no question about, who the parents are, if they're hets or not. So all of that is on my channel. So you guys can go and check that out. But yeah, glad to be here. Very excited. Been looking forward to this for quite a while. So thanks for having me, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. I definitely want to dive into the PVC builds and stuff you do like that. But real quick, shout out to Tom from Low Life Exotics. Appreciate the super chat. Really appreciate the support. So Kai, tell us about how you got into reptiles and then kind of what led you to ball pythons specifically.
Okay, so I know a lot of people, their story is that they've always liked ball pythons or snakes as a kid. That was not me, right? Growing up in China, snakes were a food source. So I never had a interest or a fixation with snakes. Maybe turtles. So in China, like I said, a lot of reptiles were seen as a food source. Turtles, soft shell turtles, snakes, things like that. The only reptile like the Chinese people looked at as a pet would be a turtle. And the reason is because turtles, they have the green shell, which money is green, right?
Okay.
A lot of them have like red and yellow on their underside or pigments on their skin. And those are colors for like luck, happiness, joy, good fortune. And then of course the turtle, we know turtles live for a long time, so they're also a symbol of longevity. So when
Sure.
it comes to
Okay.
turtles, we like them. But when it comes to other reptiles, it's just like, well, it's just a reptile, it's food, right? Or so, but I always liked little critters. It doesn't matter what it was. Like when I was growing up, I would, be fascinated with dragonflies or beetles or ants, wasps and bees, and even little birds like in the trees. And I think another part of me enjoyed like making things for those animals. Like I would make a little birdhouse or bird feeder for the birds, and I would make a net to capture the dragonflies, and it actually worked. So I made nets to capture dragonflies, to capture guppies and tadpoles, and I would raise them for a short period of time and then let them go. Um, so I always had a fascination with little animals, and I remember. So before I came to the States, I came here when I was like, I just turned 6. So the memory has to be from when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And at that time in China, there weren't many cars. Like you had to be super, super rich to have a car, and we didn't have cars. I remember sitting on the back of my grandfather's bike, and he would ride me to a pet store. Now these aren't like pet stores like we know here. It's not like you go into a Petco and you have all these varieties of animals and then their foods and enclosures and all that stuff, right? The pet stores in China, it was like this one long strip or maybe 2 strips of garage size stores. There's the size of a garage. And each store owner pretty much specialized in one or two species. So you can go to one store and all they would have are canaries. You go to a
Okay.
next store, all they would have are like fish, like goldfish, right? And then you go to another store and there would just be finches. Another store there'd just be parakeets. Another store there would just be salamanders. That's how they were very specialized in what they do,
Specialized. Okay.
right? And like I said, at that time there was no cars, so there's no need for parking lots. So right in front of those stores were the smaller business owners, business people, like us, kind of like us. We don't have a store of ourselves, but we would go to a show and we would vend there, right? So it's kind of like that where they don't have tables and they don't have to pay for it because it's just open land. These people would also be even more specialized and they would bring their animals on the back of their bikes. So
Wow.
if their animals were fish, they were holding gallons and gallons of water on their bike,
Oh
right?
wow.
And they would bring it there. They would set up these tubs. They would put their fish in it, and like I said, they were even more specialized. So you can go to you walk down and you'll see one guy with like a certain variety of goldfish, like let's say red cap orandus. The next guy next to him had red and white ryukins. The next guy has pearl scale, and the next guy has celestial eyes. So they would all be specialized in not just goldfish, but a certain type of goldfish, and sometimes even down to the color. Like one guy would
Oh
be
nice.
specialized in just black goldfish, and then the next guy would be specialized in red and white goldfish, and the next one would be specialized in calico goldfish. Same variety, just different color. Like that's how focused they were. And so like they would become known for that variety. So when you want to go and get like a black moor, you know exactly who to go to. Kind of like here, it, you know we always talk about focusing on one project, like sunset, for example, and you want to be known for sunset, so you just focus on it. And then when somebody wants to buy sunset, they would come to you, not to somebody else who's just dabbling in sunset like that, right?
Right.
So I had those memories. So from a very early child, i would I was fond of canaries and goldfish because those were the two that my grandfather kept.
Okay.
And then so when I came to the States, it's funny because I a lot of times I go on podcasts and people ask me like what brought me into ball pythons, and I have it's fairly much the same story, but I don't want to repeat it exactly, so I kind of look at it from a different angle. So this one is a little bit different because
That's
like I
what's
said,
up.
I'm just telling it from a different angle, but it's the same story. Um, so canaries and goldfish were basically what by default I was allowed to have because my grandfather liked it, right? Because my grandfather was a patriarch of the family. Whatever he says goes. So my mom could not like negate what he said, because if he says you're not allowed to have goldfish, then I'd be like, well, grandpa has it, you know. So so goldfish and canaries. So when I came to the States, um, canaries were hard to find, and they were really expensive at that time. They were like for us who we came with like the clothes on our back, right? So we didn't have that much money, and a canary was like $200 from a pet store, and it was really expensive. But goldfish, I didn't really know too much about the varieties of goldfish at that time, but in the stores they had feeder fish, the rosy red feeder fish. And my mom was like, "Oh, it's $1 for 12? Yeah, you can have those." So, so that's what I started with, is rosy red gold, like these little feeder fish, and I put them into like this little bowl. We didn't have a tank. We didn't have money to buy a tank, so I just put them in a bowl.
That's what I started with, is rosy
Oh,
red gold. These little
I hear an echo.
And I put
Is that me or is that you?
Yeah, that was me. Like my phone just jumped on and
Oh,
it was playing Clutch Conversations. So my phone is smart. It was playing Clutch Conversations.
nice.
That was weird though, because like I ain't touched my phone or nothing. It just popped on.
Yeah, I thought it was me for a
Proceed.
second. Oh, yeah. So we didn't really have that much money, and my mom didn't want to like sink that much money into like a whole fish tank and the filtration and all that stuff, right? We just thought that we could keep it in a bowl, and we did that for a little bit. And because these were like really, I don't want to say they're crappy fish, but they're hardy fish, so they're able to gulp the air from the surface of the water, and they survive
Okay.
for a very long time. But gradually, I moved on to, an actual setup, a glass tank, an aquarium, a 10-gallon tank with like filtration, and then I put in goldfish, like actual goldfish, not feeder fish. Um, and then gradually I moved on to like guppies and tetras, like the tropical stuff. And then when I was like in high school, I started to breed my own fish because I was just interested in breeding, because I just thought like, I don't know, I guess it's just natural progression. Like if you want to feel like you've made it, you have to at least breed it, like go through the entire cycle, kind of that kind of ordeal.
So is
And
that breeding fish process, is that difficult?
oh
And
yeah,
I guess it's
oh
relative
yeah.
to ball pythons.
It's like it's so much more difficult than ball pythons. So much more. I don't want to offend anyone. I mean, ball pythons, it's not easy, but the goldfish, like there's so many more things to look out for. The survival rate is so low. Like goldfish eat their eggs. Like fish just eat their eggs.
Okay.
It's just a instinct. Big fish eat little fish. Like even if you think the fish are vegetarians, no. Like most people think carp are vegetarians, but if a little fish swims by their face, they just eat it. So they're not really vegetarians. I don't think any fish are true vegetarians. Even the algae eaters, if you put in like a piece of shrimp, they'll go and chew on that. So all right, but
Okay.
anyway, like it's not the same, and that is one of the reasons why I switched over to ball pythons, because I felt like, I was able to breed the fish, yes, but there was such high failures in breeding the fish that it became just, I don't know. I mean, when you fail that often, it just feels like, it's
Is
a
it
dead end.
deflating?
Yeah, yeah, and plus like it's hard to make money off of fish unless you're either breeding a really really expensive type, or you're breeding like, like neon tetras, where you can breed in mass quantities, and then kind of like rats, right? Like you don't make that much off of breeding rats, but you have a tight margin. But if you breed a lot of them, yeah, you can make money off of it. So like that's kind of like breeding tetras.
Gotcha.
Whereas breeding the expensive goldfish or koi's, that's kind of like breeding for the Pompeys.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I ain't
Yeah.
talking
So
language, I understand.
yeah. So going back, like when I was in high school and I started breeding the fish in the beginning, I remember my mom still wasn't very enthusiastic about keeping fish, right? But I got to the point where there was like 30 fish tanks in the house, and she couldn't keep track of them. So if I found space, if I could like squeeze two or three of them close and then add another one before she got home from work, she wouldn't even be able to know the difference. And 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 it was good that like I met my girlfriend, now my wife. I met her at that time, so she already knew I was kind of paranoid with these animals, right? So I don't think I would have met anybody else that would marry me if it wasn't for her at that time. So I remember, um, she called me. We were on the phone. I forget who called who, but like she wanted like to go out or something, to movies or something, and I was like, no, I'm on a mission. I got to make this fish tank stand before my mom gets home, and I got to set it up before he gets home, because I got a fish coming, and if I don't set it up now, like that fish is gonna come and it's gotta have nowhere to go. And I was like, if you want to spend time with me, you can come here and help me set it up. And so she did. She came
She did?
over.
Oh,
Yeah, she came over. She helped me
nice.
build the stand. She helped me carry it to the location, empty all those other fish tanks, shift them all over, put the new stand in, put the new fish tank in. I set up all the filtration. We put in the water, and then I was like, okay, now we can go somewhere.
You should have proposed right then, bro.
Yeah, my mom wouldn't. My mom would no. We were too young. My parents would not have approved, and I don't think her parents would either. Yeah, but so gradually, after breeding so many fish, I kind of got bored of it. It was fish is more difficult, especially goldfish, because well, ball pythons they have one set of genes, two genes, right? So they have, what do we call it? So at each locus point, there's two genes, but goldfish have three.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so that's one. I think that's one of the reasons why goldfish can be very expensive. Koi fish, those Japanese kois. I think that's one of the reasons they can be so expensive is because you don't know what you're getting because they have three of those. Like you can't. It's really hard to predict what you're getting, and also because they have genetic mutations like ball
Mm-hmm.
pythons, but then a lot of them are also line bred for certain
Okay.
traits, for certain colors, for certain clarity, um, and so that's one of the reasons why. And plus, they have competitions too, like a dog competition. The champion dog and its babies, its puppies, are sold for a much higher price than another dog who's never been in a competition, who's never
Right.
won anything, right? So these koi breeders, they have competitions in Japan. They would take the koi there, and if it wins, then the breeder has the option of either keeping it for future breeding, and then he can basically say, hey, all these other babies came from this champion, or he can sell that champion and get a ton of money for it. Right. That's one of the reasons why that's really expensive. I think in Indonesia, Malaysia, maybe they also have competitions for ball pythons. I don't know why we don't have it here. I think we should. It'd be pretty cool. Like it kind of like everybody meet up at like a Tinley, but instead of just selling, you would also have your ball python there to be judged by like Kevin McCurley
Yeah, some sort of
and
panel or
Justin.
whatever.
Yeah. So I think that would be cool as well. What was I
That would be
getting at?
dope. Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, it got to a point where just breeding fish wasn't as interesting to me anymore, and it was only breaking even. At best, it was just breaking even.
Gotcha.
So um, I was just browsing YouTube like most people, and then of course, so this is the similarity with most other people that landed on ball pythons. Brian Barczyk, his Snake Bites TV. I landed on that. Yeah, Brian Strong. I landed on his channel. I saw some of his videos. There was one thumbnail of a blue snake, and I didn't know what it was. And I watched that video like numerous times, thinking that if it's a thumbnail, it must appear in the video somewhere. And that's not true because that snake never appeared anywhere in the video. It was just clickbait. It was a blue, like somebody put a filter on it or whatever, or painted it, and it was
Got
just a
him.
blue ball python. And so from there, I thought, hey, you know what? That's pretty cool. And I went to Petco, I think, or PetSmart, and got a ball python, and that's kind of how I started. That's a
So
really
what
long
ball
story.
python did you pick up? Was it a
I had no idea what I was doing. Like I did a lot of research in how to care for one, and I saved I bookmarked a lot of articles on how to breed them. But the genetics part was
Mhm.
it wasn't daunting. It's just that I didn't know about it. So I landed on Ozzy's um, channel, and he had Orange Dream. So
Yep.
I thought anything that was Orange Dream. So when I went to PetSmart, and they only had like 3 animals out on display, and I didn't like any of them. They were also running a sale. I think the regular price was like $60, and they was running a sale. They came down to $40 for a normal, and they only had 3 on display. Only one of them was a normal. I asked one of the employees about it, and they said, "Hey, there's another one that we have in the back." And I was like, "That's weird. Why do you have one in the back and not on display?" I was like, "Is this sick or something? Like, what's going on?" And they're like, "No, we just don't want so many of the same species on display. They want to leave space for other animals so they can have variety."
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense from their
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah. So they took me back and showed me the other one, and it was orange, and I was like, "Well, what is that?" And they're like, "Well, it's a normal." And I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking that is not a normal. That thing is orange. Like I know what a normal looks like at this point, and that thing is not a normal. And it's because it's orange, and I only know of the gene Orange Dream. That has to be an Orange Dream. Like that's just my logic, right? And so, and so I purchased it, thinking that I got a great deal because they sold it to me as a normal. And then, of course, like most of us, we were all like happy and excited about it. We posted on Facebook, and I put it on some like a bunch of ball python Facebook groups. And
What
some
year
people,
was this?
oh man, this had to been like 2017, maybe even late 2016. And some people were like, "Hey, nice Enchi." I'm like, "What? Is that even English? Like, what is that?" So then later on, I found out Enchi was another gene. I was like, "Man, I thought I got an Orange Dream. This is an Enchi." Um, so I think what I did was okay. So here's the funny part. Because I got it, and in New Jersey, that's where I am. You need a permit to own a ball python.
Oh, for real?
Okay, yeah,
Just to own one?
just to
Wow.
own one. It's not expensive, and one permit allows you to own as many ball pythons as you want. There's no
Okay.
change in fee between 1 and 1,000. So I've already sent away for my permit. Okay, I sent away for my permit, and I was like, and I and because it's Enchi, I already made up my mind. Like I made up my mind in the very beginning that I wanted an Orange Dream and nothing but an Orange Dream because I thought I was just gonna get one or two and make a super Orange Dream because that's what Ozzy was doing. That was badass. So because it's Enchi and PetSmart had like a 14-day or 21-day return policy, like no questions asked, I went to go return it, and they allowed me to return it. But because I already sent away and paid for that permit, I was like, I can't let that permit go to waste. So I had to go source another Orange Dream, and that's when
So
I laid it on Morph
the
Market.
Petco let you buy the snake without verifying that you had a permit, even though you were required to have a permit. How's that work?
No, they don't need to verify. They ask you if you have a permit, and if you do, great. They just give you the animal. But they asked me if I had one, and I said no. So what they did was they issued me a temporary permit that was only good for I think 10 or 14 days. So
Gotcha.
within
Okay.
that time frame, I had to take that temporary permit along with the receipt, send it to the Fish and Wildlife, and then they would issue me a permanent
Got it.
permit,
Okay.
and it would be good for a year. Every year, I have to renew it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. So that was the first one. And I made many more mistakes after that because I still didn't know what I was doing. I was just like randomly buying animals. I did what everybody does, which is buy animals in pairs. I think I bought like a fire orange dream with a Mojave orange dream. I thought I was getting an awesome deal because it was a um, real real no, not Canadian. Um, Garrick DeMeyer. What's the
Okay.
store?
Yeah.
Royal Design something?
Royal Ambassador.
No. Garrick DeMeyer.
Oh,
It's the one with the colorful
with the
snake head.
colorful logo. Yeah.
Yeah. So he does like every year. I think he does this sale where around Christmas New Year time, he does a sale and oh, you know what? I think he even starts it earlier. I think he starts it like Cyber Monday, something like that. Anyway, he runs a sale, and I thought I was getting a great deal. So I was buying things in pairs, in pairs, in pairs. Everything was in pairs. Like if you looked in my rack at that time, I had equal number of females and equal number of males, and I thought that was the way to do it. Um, but we all know now that I was stupid.
So when you first start saying like, so it sounds like you came like into the reptile hobby. Yeah, Royal Constrictor Designs. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I couldn't think of it.
Yes.
I couldn't think of it for nothing. Appreciate that, Lou Balls. But yeah, it sounds like when you jump into ball python game, your initial intentions were to breed. What made you want to breed like right out the gate?
It's my fascination with genetics. Like I said, with fish, we can breed for color, we can breed for the length of the fins, we can breed for pattern. There's all these things, but there's such high mortality rate that it became deflating to do so. And also, it requires so much attention because the fish, when they're babies, I had to feed them, and they eat all the time. So I would have to like rush home from work, feed them, wake up in the middle of the night and feed them. And they don't eat like flake foods when they're babies. They eat what's called baby brine shrimp. So you buy these containers of shrimp eggs, and you had to hatch them yourself. And so it takes about 24 to 36 hours to hatch them. So you have to constantly have this assembly line of
Oh wow.
of fish eggs. I'm sorry, shrimp eggs to partially developed and then finally hatched, and then you just keep rotating and adding more shrimp eggs. And so like I had like I think 4 or 5 of these canisters that were in different stages. I would feed the last canister, which are the ones that hatched, to the fish, and then I would move them all over and start a new one with fresh eggs. And I would do that like 4 or 5 times a day sometimes, just to keep the baby fish alive. And then of course as the fish grows, you had to buy more and more eggs to feed those mouths because now their bellies are bigger, right? Um, it was a lot of work, but my main fascination was genetics, and I realized that it wasn't really the fish that I was liking. It's just creating new colors and new combos, right? Like what we call
Okay.
them ball pythons, right?
So that's what pulled you into the ball
Yeah,
python game, is that
yeah,
fascination with the creation of the different combos and stuff.
right. And so like I said, like, oh, you can make a super orange dream. That's interesting, right? And I could have bought a super orange dream and just be like, okay, I'm done. I just have one pet. But for me, it was like, I want to make the super orange dream, which is why I sourced 2 orange dreams to pair together, and thought that one day I would be able to make the super, which I did. It took a long time, but I ended up doing so. And so, some of it is just some of these projects that I have, I can go and just buy the results, buy what I want, but it's the journey sometimes that makes it more fulfilling. Like
Gotcha.
I started wanting to make dreamsicles, and at that time dreamsicles were like 3,500 for a female. And then I was like, man, that's really expensive, and I don't really have the experience yet. Plus, a albino pie looks kind of like a dreamsicle. so so I was like, let me just go the cheap route and just see if I can even breed for breed ball pythons at all, to see if I'm successful before I jump in the deep end and shell out like 11, $12,000 for visual het for the dreamsicle. So that's kind
Gotcha.
of what I
Okay.
did. Yeah, it was more. It wasn't really the species or the breeding that drew me into the hobby. It was the fact that we can create all of these different colors and combine these mutations that really drew me in.
So going back to kind of like your original focus, like you like the Orange Dream, you wanted to make super ODs.
Mhm.
You mentioned that you wanted to make dreamsicles, but you kind of like pivoted and went with like albino pies and stuff like that. So just kind of talk about your project focus, like from the beginning, and how it's kind of evolved over time, and bring
Oh,
us up
okay.
to where you're at right now with it.
Yeah, so that's easy because from the beginning I had no focus. There was no focus at all.
Same
Like I
here.
said,
Same
I
here.
didn't know what I was doing. All I thought I should be doing was, obviously I was trying to make the albino pie, but I didn't have any direction after that. I just thought, if I make the albino pie, that's great. I'm done. Uh, but I didn't have any directions. With the Orange Dream, though, my direction was just to make the most orange, the most red snake. And at that time, I knew about other genes that would make a ball python red or orange. So of course, like we can double up on Orange Dream, we can double up on Enchi, so super orange dream, super Enchi. Add a dose of yellow belly in it, maybe fire. That would just probably brighten it and take away from the orange. Um, Cinnamon or black pastel, add that in there to like deepen it, intensify. So that was, I guess, kind of my focus. And at that time, it was all about codoms. That time, we were just stacking codoms, trying to get 6 or 7 codoms. Like you watch Kevin McCurley's videos on the Nerd Channel back then. Like the snakes that he had, they all look the same. they all look the same. After like 7 different genes in there, they all kind of look the same. I was like, I'm looking at these animals, and Kevin's like, oh, this is Lucifer and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, how do you even know? It's just a yellow snake. There's like hardly any pattern. And he was like, oh, look at this spot right here. See how it's kind of green flicking, so it's probably inchy in there. Uh, and so like after a while, after a lot of that, I started to pivot into recessives because I just kind of felt like the codoms, you can keep stacking codoms, but you're going to get to a point where they all kind of look the same. And so I kind of felt like that was a dead end. I felt like the recessives were more interesting. They were more rewarding, especially since I think at that time I've already made pieds. I've already made albinos. I think a few others, but they just felt more rewarding because it takes a longer time to get there. And I think, like I said earlier, the part of the fun is the journey that you take.
True.
And that's also why I make my YouTube videos, because I wanted to take people along that journey with me. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, what all recessives are you focusing on now?
Okay. So I always tell people my top 3 that I'm focusing on are pieds, clowns, and desert ghosts in that order. And I list them in that order because that's the based on the number of animals I have. So I have most pieds, so that's why I said pieds number 1. Clowns now are a close second in terms of the number of breeder females that I have.
Okay.
And then third would be desert ghosts.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the funny story with these is, I mean, there's other recessives that I like as well. I'm more interested. Not say more interested. I would say I'm more excited about the newer stuff that I have, like a sunset. But I only have one visual sunset in my entire collection, so I can't say I focus on that. But the funny thing about the pieds and the clowns is like I had about equal number of visuals that I purchased, right? And I grew them up. Now with the pieds, I wouldn't say I'm super lucky or successful. I think I'm just like on par with the odds when it comes to producing pieds, because at this point I have, in terms of breeder females, I have equal number of breeder females that were purchased versus those that I produced myself and grew up that are now breeders. So half of them were purchased and half of them were produced by me that are adults and have bred or close to breeding. When it comes to clowns though, guess how many adult size clowns I have that I produced?
That you produced?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That I have and grew up to adults now.
10?
3.
3?
3. My luck with clowns is just absolutely horrible. Like if I want, everybody always jokes around. If you want a male, you get the females. If you want a female, you get the male, right? It was exactly that with my clowns. And on top of that, I would get clutches where they're all hets and maybe like one clown. Like all the hets would have all the codoms and then just one male clown, regular clown. That's my luck. So all this time, and the 3 that I held back, only one of them I really wanted to hold back. The other 2 I held back because I thought, this would be interesting for some path down the road. And so that's why I held them back.
What are those 3?
Okay, so one of them is a orange dream enchi clown. One of them is a pastel extreme gene clown, and the other one is a super pastel extreme gene clown. And those 2, the 2 with the pastel and extreme gene, those are the ones that I thought would be interesting to see what the super extreme gene looks like in a clown. Okay. I was also speculating because I heard rumors that Ken Masick, who I believe founded the extreme gene, when he founded the extreme gene, he had other mutations floating around in his collection at the same time, and he just thought they were all extreme gene. He later discovered that one of them was a het tri-stripe, and I think he came out with a video not that recently, but it was more one of the later ones, that there was another gene that he called the extremist.
The extremist, was that
Yeah,
a codon?
yes, I think it's a codon. Now, what made it even more confusing is that he has one gene called extreme gene and another one he's calling extremist. And
Clear as
even
mud.
even myself, I'm still a little bit confused. Like, is the extremist a gene, or is that the super form of the extreme gene? So that's one of the reasons, because there's some confusion there, and because he didn't know what he was producing at that time. Um, and the animal that I got was a super pastel extreme gene clown male. Back up. I purchased it as a pastel extreme gene clown because I didn't want to have pastel in everything, right?
True.
Fortunately, it turned out, I proved him out to be a super pastel because he produced everything pastels. Everything that he produced was a pastel. So that's also one of the reasons I couldn't really hold back everything, right? Because everything was a pastel.
Everything has
Everything
pastel.
has
Yeah.
pastel, and I wanted variety. So like I said, I ended up holding two of his offsprings, two of the females, and I just wanted to see, one, I wanted to see what the super extreme gene would do in a clown, and two, I wanted to see if I really had the extreme gene or if it was the het form of a tri-stripe or that other extremist gene.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm the same way with pastel. Like, I'm not a pastel hater, like, by any stretch, but I don't want it in every single.
Everything, yeah, you don't want it in
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Pastel is
yeah,
making it back, though. I know a lot of people don't like pastel in clowns, and I think in certain clown projects,
yeah.
um, I could see why they don't want it. But you can start to see, like, clown and desert ghosts are becoming like the base now
Yeah,
for a lot of clown combos. And you look at what Justin's doing, a lot of his stuff he's trying to make it, a lot of his clown combos he's trying to remake as a desert ghost clown combo.
yeah,
And so from that point, I think it does make sense to put pastel back in because pastel and DG go so well together, it brightens
yeah.
up everything.
Pastel and DG go well together for sure. Like, I saw a pastel, maybe confusion. It was either confusion or acid, but I feel like they're the same thing. But I try to call them whatever they're labeled as and whatever they were sold to the person as and however they produced them. But I can't remember if it was confusion or acid. But it was like a pastel confusion clown combo. It was pretty
Mhm.
dope. Like, it was nice. Like, so I'm not a just 100% pastel hater, but again, I don't want it in every single animal I produce. And I
Yeah,
definitely don't want it on my male side, right? I'd
right,
rather have it
right.
on the female side.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I was not that smart. I was not that clever when I purchased my males. Like I said, that pastel extreme gene clown turned out to be a super pastel extreme gene clown. And I thought I was getting a great deal by buying a super pastel hypo clown because I wanted to make hypo clowns. And I'm just thinking, oh, this is great because it's super pastel. I could also use them as backup, because I could always tell if the baby comes out pastel, I would know it's sired by the killer hypo clown male.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is great. I can use them. And then I ended up like pastel everything. Everything pastel, 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 super pastel. Everything was pastel. And I was like, oh no, what did I do? Like, why did I do this to myself?
Are you working any trifecta projects?
Yeah, I started to. Um, I have, let's see, what do I have? I think the one that I'm closest to hitting would be hypo clown pied. Yeah, hypo clown pied.
Oh, hypo clown pod. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, I was wondering if you were working like any DG clown pod projects. Are you working any of those too?
Not DG clown pied. I have plans for a DG exanthic pied.
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
Yeah, yeah. But
Okay,
but
okay,
the odds
okay.
of my but it's funny because the odds of my, I shouldn't say odds. It's really luck. My luck with exanthic pieds, sorry, exanthic DGs has been horrible. First of all, I don't know why, but my double het females are just they just took forever to grow. They started off really well, and then they just around the 800 gram mark, they just really became really slow. Um, they grew really slow. They would only take a meal like every third feeding. I finally got them up to size, and they reabsorbed the first season.
Oh man.
The second season, one female went, but the other one reabsorbed again. And of the female that went, she produced exanthics, but not desert ghosts or exanthic desert ghosts. The following season, um, one female hold on. Actually, the following season they both reabsorbed again. So
Dang.
so out of 3 seasons and 2 females, I only got one clutch.
Dang.
So that's my
Yeah.
luck with the Exanthic Desert Ghost project. Hopefully, things
Do
will
you
be.
have any theories about like what causes them to reabsorb, or?
You know, these 2 girls are on a really weird schedule. I haven't figured it. I mean, one girl I kind of figured it out because she did give me a clutch, so I have some historical data. I kind of feel like I kind of know when she's going, when she needs to go, but she's going late in the season, and so the males are starting to get turned off at that time, right? They're not excited to go anymore. They're kind of like, oh, my breeding's done for the year, and so I think they're getting lazy towards the end of the year, and I think that might be the reason. Even though she is ready, the males are no longer interested, and so I think that's why she's reabsorbing it because she's just not getting the viable sperm. That's one theory that I have.
Okay.
As far as the other girl that reabsorbed 3 seasons in a row, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with her. I think she's late as well. I think her cycle is weird because it's not like most of mine will start going in like October, and then peak around July, and then start to taper off by like September,
Okay.
October timeframe. But this one girl that just keeps reabsorbing, I think she's either, well, I don't know what you want to call it. Either she's going really, really early in the season or really, really late in the season, and that's just not the time that the males are like really excited, I guess.
Do you ultrasound?
I got the ultrasound last year.
Okay. Which one did you get?
I think what's it called? The contact.
Contact. Okay. Yeah.
Actually, Ern Exotics, who was in the chat. I don't know if he's still there. He was the one that recommended it to me because I was a little afraid of using it at first because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and for some reason, in my mind, I thought that it would cost like $3,000 for an ultrasound, and that's probably because like I looked into the cost of an ultrasound way back then, and it was like $3, $4, $5,000 for a system. But then when Ern sent me the link, and I was like, I'm getting it. That's ridiculously cheap. And he said it was super easy to use, and I was like, I'm getting it.
It really is.
Yeah, I love it. It's a huge benefit. I don't think you absolutely need it because I still palpate. Like I only break it out once every 3 weeks to every 4 weeks. So once a month I'll use it. But in between that time, I'm still good at like just looking at the female and kind of figuring out where she is, and maybe I'll palpate. But a lot of times I can just look at it and based on like how she's reacting, how she's feeding, I can kind of gauge as to, if she's producing follicles or not. And the other trick that I have.
How close is your eye test or your field test? Like, and what I mean by that is like when you're like looking at them or feeling them, like palpating them and whatnot to see where they're at, but then you turn around and you ultrasound them. Like, how close are you? Like, are you kind of like pretty in the ballpark, or are you kind of like way off?
No, I'm pretty in the ballpark. I think maybe 3 or 4 millimeters, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, bro.
I would have to. I think the smallest follicles I'm able to palpate is around like 17, 18 millimeters. Okay. So if I go and palpate and I was like, oh, is that really a follicle? Oh, I think it is. That's when I know it's 17 millimeters because I'm just barely able to feel it, and then I go by that feel. Like if it's a little bit bigger, then it'd be 20, and then I just go based on my memory of what it felt like before.
Gotcha. So has the ultrasound changed your breeding tactics? Like, do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
ultrasound
yeah, definitely.
there in the spot and then you pair? Like,
Um, no, no, not necessarily. I think when I pair is still, I still go by how the female is reacting, and then I'll know when to pair. Um, how it's changed is it's been able to help me stretch the males, and the reason I said that is like I had the sunset male. That's the big purchase that I made last season. I purchased an adult sunset, and my plan was to just put them to like a bunch of pies and a bunch of recessives, candies, ultramel, a bunch of to make a bunch of double hets.
sure.
And I created this list, and then after I created this list, and I looked at it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if he's going to be able to. I don't know if he's going to go the whole mile with so many females. So I kind of thought like, oh, you know what? Maybe these females are pieds. I can use another pied as a backup to help them out, and then these females are candies. So I have an albino male, and he can be their backup. So if I get a candino, I know with the backup it wasn't the sunset, right? But then I'm like, do I really want a bunch of you know pieds when I'm shooting for double hets? Do I want a bunch of candinos when I'm shooting for double hets? So that's when I realized that a ultrasound would really come in handy because I wouldn't be putting the sunset in unnecessarily,
True.
and that was the biggest benefit for me. Even now, like I have, I make pairings now. I'm more confident in making pairings now because I have the ultrasound. And you hear other people say like, oh, I have one male to 14 females. That's because they have the ultrasound.
Yeah, I see somebody say that the other day. Like, in fact, they had multiple males that was going to about that many females.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I feel like you have to have an ultrasound to do that because you can like strategically identify. Okay, so this makes sense to put this male with this girl because she's here and she's progressing forward, and you kind of pick and choose what female you put them with, and make sure you're not just wasting them, right? Because otherwise, you don't necessarily know. I feel like I know for
Yeah.
me, I pretty much had the ultrasound the whole time. I'm not good at palpating like at all. Like sometimes I feel like I feel something, like a little something, but it's usually when they're bigger, right? And so
Hmm.
like I kind of have an idea in my head, like, hey, I felt like I felt something last time I held her. Let me ultrasound and see. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. So I don't really have it dialed in right now, but I am trying to use the ultrasound to kind of teach me how to palpate. But I'm glad I got the ultrasound because it's been
Yeah.
like a ton of help, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know what you're saying. You kind of use the ultrasound to double check, right? Like I think I feel it, and then use the ultrasound, and be like, oh yeah, that was definitely it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
now I know what I felt was confirmed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to train that sense of touch and the palpate. I ain't quite got it, but I am not just strictly relying on the ultrasound. I do want to teach myself how to palpate and
Hmm.
continue to try to like feel them and have an idea. I watch the girls too and like watch their behavior. The thing that I've noticed this year, and I hope I'm not shooting myself in the foot. Like truth be told, I am a little bit nervous about this. I did drop my temps quite a bit this year, like just like the hot spots and stuff. Because last year, especially towards the end of the season, I had quite a bit of slugs out of like 3 clutches, right? And so I think part of that was because my temps got too high because it gets like super hot in Florida, and then I had my hot spots probably too high, and so I dropped them a little bit because I was like more around probably like 90 is where I was trying to be, and I think that was too high. And so like I dropped them
Hmm.
this year. But I've noticed a lot of my girls don't spend as much time at the front of the tub as I'm used to them seeing like at this point in time when they're building. And so like I'm a little bit nervous, but then at the same time I'm like, well, maybe they don't have to because that hot spot isn't where it was before, and so they don't have to spend that time at the front of the tub. So I don't know. We'll see how it works. Hopefully, I'm not shooting myself in the foot in that regard, but we'll see. That's part of the fun, but it's also like part of the stress and the
The
worrisome
stress.
part.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
man, I really want all these girls to go,
Yeah.
but looking at the girls and like where a lot of my collection is right now is fairly comparable to where it was like last year at this time. I actually got like a few girls. Like I'm expecting eggs on the ground like in probably like the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then like eggs on the ground from another girl after that, like a week later, and then like another week later, eggs on the ground from another girl. Last year this time I only had one girl at this time of year that was going, and so it seems comparable, but I just be worried about it just because it's new. But I see the homie Matt. What's up, bro? He said, "Trust me, you'll be good with them little attempts." So my homie Matt says good is good, bro. Take that
Yeah.
to the bank.
I think you'll be all right. I think you'll be all right. Yeah, the thing is like I know there's see I get irritated sometimes when I see people ask, hey, did I set up my enclosure right? And of course everybody has to jump in and tell them that they're doing it wrong. I think the question should really be like, what are my options, right? And then people should be able to provide options. Hey, like when I sell a hatchling to somebody and I get the sense that they might be new, um, I'll ask them, what do you have in terms of your enclosure, or what are you thinking of getting? And to be honest, some of these people tell me that they're new. This is their first snake, and ask me what their how big of a terrarium or aquarium or tub should be. And they ask me that, and so that's one of the ways I know that they're new to this. And I always tell them just to start out small with like a shoe box, like a 5 or 6 quart box. There'll be some people who are like, no, I want a terrarium. I want to give them the biggest space, and I always tell them like just start small. You can always get them the bigger ones later. For now, just get them acclimated to to your home, right? And just see what the temperature and humidity is, because it's much easier to control the temperature and humidity in a smaller space than in a 4 foot, 6 foot terrarium.
True.
So I always tell them to start there, and then I give them examples like if your humidity is high in that box, then you might want to take out your substrate and put in paper. If you had a 6 foot terrarium, that's a lot of substrate to take out and replace with paper, right? So it's easier to adjust and figure out exactly what makes it comfortable for your animal in a smaller space. You have less work to do, less material to move around. And then once you get comfortable with that, once you realize what works for you in your home in that room, then go ahead and get a larger enclosure. And so like I know you were talking about dropping your temps and seeing what works. I think that's kind of what we have to do, is you just experiment a little bit. Yeah, I dropped my temperatures too. What I did was last season I dropped it, I think like 4 degrees, and then I put it back up after 2 weeks. I didn't really see much of a difference. But because of what happened to me towards the end of the season, same thing happened to you, was I was getting slugs at the end of the season. This time around, I dropped it 6 degrees, and then after that, I only brought it back up 4. So I dropped, so technically they're
So
2 degrees cooler than they were before. Yeah. So I still dropped it. I gave them a swing, but I just didn't swing all the way back up. I just swing up by 4 degrees.
Gotcha. And so did that work out for you?
I'm trying it this season.
Oh, that's this season. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
this one, 2023.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I want to see if the ones that laid late in the season, hopefully they'll still lay, and hopefully they won't give me slugs. They'll give me pearly white eggs. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was great at the beginning of the season. I was like, yeah, doing this, because this is my third season. Last year was the first season that I had multiple clutches, and I had one clutch the prior year. But yeah, like at the beginning of the season, it was just like clockwork. Like every egg that came out was good, but then towards the end, like I said, I had like 3 clutches where it was just
started to taper off.
What in the world? And my double head DG Clown clutch was one. So I had, so all but one egg was a slug from that girl. And the one egg seemed to be viable like the whole time until like probably like 2 or 3 days before it was supposed to hatch. And then it just went downhill. And so like that ended up being like a bad egg. So I got no eggs out of that clutch. I had a double head hypopod clutch that I didn't get anything out of because she slugged out. It was several codoms in that one. And then I had another girl where it was actually not a recessive clutch. It was just like all codoms in that one, but she slugged out as well. And so those were the 3 clutches that gave me fits right at the end of the year. I was like, man, what's going on? I think I posted like 1 or 2 of those though. And I was like, you win some, you lose some. It's part of the game. But hopefully it helps this year with dropping those temps though. Like I said, my homie Matt said it's gonna help, so take it to the bank.
Oh yeah. Hold on a second. No, I didn't wash it yet. You need it?
Everybody, make sure y'all hit that like button. If you're not currently subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button and smash that notification bell. It really helps us out in the channel. And make sure you're following the guests everywhere you can follow him. The links for his social media are in the description of this video, so definitely make sure y'all go check it out. Show some love. Tell them Mike from Herp Collectors sent you.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
No problem, bro. Quick opportunity for a promo.
Yeah, thank you. I heard it. Good job, man.
So man, let's hop into like your operations, right? So how do you what's your work-life balance? Like with family and the reptiles and work, like how's that work out for you?
It doesn't work at all. No, I'm kidding.
So short answer, the TLDR, it doesn't.
I don't know. I think it's because I started really slow. I guess relatively speaking, compared to other people, I started slow, right? Like I started with breeding just 2 females just to see if I can do it. And then I think the following season, I think I had like 8 breedings, and then the following I had like 12 breedings. And so I was able to, I guess, not take too much away from the family, not take too much away from work, because I went slow, and because throughout the whole time I was finding efficiencies and taking care of the animals and breeding and doing all this stuff. So my time with the snakes wasn't like an exponential thing where like I needed a lot more time. Even though my collection grew exponentially, my time with them didn't have to be exponential. It was kind of a linear growth with the amount of time I needed to spend on my collection.
Gotcha.
And also, my kids grew older, so when you're a toddler, you need a lot of attention. But as you get older, you need less attention, and so like I was able to utilize some of that time with the snakes, because to be honest, my teenager doesn't even want me around anymore. So
I got 2 teenagers.
It all works
so I feel
out.
You, bro.
It all works out, yeah. And I also changed jobs. My old job was very demanding. I remember there was times where I would work 80 hours a week for multiple weeks in a row. I just didn't like that anymore. So 2019. So like I said, I started around 2016, 2017 with that first entry from PetSmart, right? I changed jobs 2019. So that took away a lot of the pressure, a lot of the stress from work. And I was able to refocus that with the ball pythons, which helped out a lot. And now COVID, which allows us to stay home and work, benefits even more, because instead of like being at work and oh, you know what, I'll take a break, let me just walk around the office and grab a coffee. Instead of doing that, I can go fill in some water. I can go do some spot cleaning. I can just enjoy the snakes for like 5 minutes and then come back to work.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So you've been in since 2016, 2017. So let's just call it 6, 7 years. So talk about how the market was then, or not necessarily the market. Let's just focus on the industry, at least at first. Talk about how the ball python industry was then versus how it is now, and talk about like some of the major changes and things that you've taken notice of over that time span.
I didn't really take notice of the industry, the business side, until like 2, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Because in the beginning, when I got into it, I kind of treated it like my fish hobby, where I would just be happy if it paid for itself, you know. And it kind of did. Like I said, the first two breedings I had was a visual, was visual pieds and visual albinos, and they paid for the parents. Like the babies came out and I sold them. They paid for the parents. They paid for the food, the cost that goes into feeding the parents and all that stuff. So it broke even, and it's kind of what I was expecting. And that was also based on like a lot of other people who I thought were like been in the industry, been in the hobby for a long time, because they sounded like they knew what they were talking about, right? Turns out they only had like 4 months more experience than me. But they were all saying, and we've heard this before, everybody was saying like there's no money in it, you can't retire off of it, it's not going to be a full-time job, it's a grind. They all say that stuff. So I kind of thought, I'm not going to make money out of this, it'll just be another hobby just like the fish. But with my experience with the fish and knowing that, hey, I need to rehome the fish, I need to somehow make profit out of it, or at least break even. I took that experience and then applied it to the ball pythons, and I did my math, and I'm like, these people who are saying there's no money to be made probably just aren't doing it right. Because after I did the math, like your first season, and I was proving it to myself, the first season paid for the parents, so every season after that would be profit, right? It's like it's just easy math, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't understand what you guys are saying. And then a couple years later, like I just did my own thing. Like I didn't care. I just did my own thing. I made sure the babies had a place to go. I had a couple of pet stores near me. I lined those up where, like, if I had excess, they would take them in and then sell them at their stores. I was also, like you said, I had like this channel and had the social media so that I could at least, have an accurate representation of what I stood for, and people hopefully trust me and know me based on that to be able to buy my animals. Yeah, so I kind of made sure that any hatchlings I produced would have a place to go, and then therefore also be able to make sales. The revenue would hopefully balance out the expenses at least. So in the beginning, I wasn't really paying attention to the business. But then COVID was like a blessing and a curse on many different levels. Of course, COVID hit, and then that made me like really start paying attention to my sales, to my revenue, and that's kind of when I started to retain the data. I started to collect, because before it was like, oh, I made 2, 3, 4, 8 clutches, I sell them, whatever. It kind of feels like they pay for the rats, it's fine, that kind of ordeal. But when I started making like 20 plus clutches, and when COVID hit and everybody was buying these animals, and I see other people who were also, keeping track of their sales, I thought, it's probably a good idea that I do it as well. So I did it. And that was also the time where all these big breeders started telling us, there's a lot of money to be made. Here's how to do it. Here's how you set up your project. This is how you do it. Set yourself up for success. And then it was like, oh, now the wheels are turning. Now I have to refigure my whole entire collection and my projects. I think there was a time when I actually sold a ton of breeder females just so I could realign my projects. Um, but like I said, it wasn't until the last 3 years or so when I started paying attention, or at least had the data to show that there was a that there were some changes with the industry based on at least my experience. And so far, it's been an upward trajectory, right? Like I think uh, I don't recall like if these are revenues or if these are profits, but there was like thousands of dollars, not thousands, but like maybe like $12,000 3 years ago, and then maybe like $30,000 maybe last year or something like that. Um, but I'll tell you what, this this year, 2023, and I haven't produced a clutch yet. I haven't hashed anything out yet, right? I'm just selling off what I produced last season. I've already made 75% more in revenue than I did March of last year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's, I mean, for me, it's an upward trajectory, even though like,
Are you doing, break that down for me. Are you doing 75% more volume or 75% just more revenue because you're selling like more expensive animals?
75% is revenue, but the volume is that's what I was just about to get to, is the caliber of the animals are greater than last year or the year previous, and there is more volume as well. But
Okay.
but it's not 75% more volume. The
Gotcha.
reason
So
I
it's
make
an
it more is
increase
because
in
of the
revenue,
caliber.
and it's driven partially by the caliber of the animals you sell, but a little bit more volume as well. So it's kind of a combination. But
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. Like I think 2 years ago, I only had one animal that was worth $2,000. And I ended up selling her for 1,800, which is still pretty good. Um, this season, like there was like 5 animals that were, you know, between 15 and 2 grand.
Gotcha.
So I had more. I guess that's kind of like the trend, right? Like when you start off, or the way I started off, let's say for example my Xanthic Pied project, I started off with an Xanthic Hat Pied and a Firefly Pied. And again, this is the journey that I took. I could have purchased an Xanthic Pied, but I wanted to make my own, right? So, the first year, I think I made like a Pied head Xanthic and didn't really have much else going on except for like a pastel double head. And because I was new and I felt like I needed to hold on to those double het females, even though they weren't really worth that much at that time. But I was like, I want to produce my Xanthic Pied, and I just want to have better odds. I just wanted to have more females to increase my odds. So I held on to a Pied het Xanthic and then 2 pastel double hets. The following season, I think I produced another Pied het Xanthic, right? And so like with that project, I didn't really make much with my Xanthic Pied project. I was probably just breaking even, because I am producing some visuals, some visual hets, some double hets, 66 percenters, whatever, and I was able to sell those and kind of just use that to break even. But then after that, I produced 3 double visuals the following season. And those are growing up now. They're almost breeder size. In fact, the male is already running through to a few females.
Nice.
So with that said, last season, I think I produced like 7 double visuals. And I don't need them. I don't need that much, right? So
Right.
so those are the ones that I was able to sell. So that's kind of like if you think about the revenue that was made from just that project, it pretty much stayed constant. It's pretty much stayed constant, and then all of a sudden it just went up. And this year is the year that it went up. So is it our economy that caused it? Was it? So it's hard for me to like definitively say that the industry isn't crashing. It certainly is not crashing. That's not what I meant. Like, but the industry is slowing down. However, if you look at my data, it looks like the industry is speeding up because my sales have accelerated tremendously. But that's also because my collection is growing
Right.
tremendously. At I'm almost doubling every year the number of breeders that I have, right? So it kind of does make sense that I'm making 75% more now than I did last year. This time last year.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. On all aspects of that, that makes perfect sense. So, kind of, you mentioned like change, like industry changes. So I did want to touch on change a little bit because, like, I noticed you've had some changes with your logo. Can you speak to that? Because I know we went back and forth on like what logo we were going to use, and so like
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about kind of like what went into that and where you're at now and what's the plan going forward.
yeah. So I always knew that I should keep my logo simple. Um, it's changed a little bit, like the snake logo that I had before. The neck was a little bit longer. It kind of looked like a cobra. I didn't like it, and then I just shortened the neck, and that's kind of how I kept it for quite a while. Um, but then I wanted to see if I could simplify it even more. And like I said, this whole hobby, I named it Lucas Landon because my kids, that's their names. So anytime I make a logo change, like that's the I guess party that needs to approve the
Yeah.
logo. And so I made like 3 or 4 different ones. Okay. And they did not agree on a single one. They I mean they approved one, but what they approved was not the same one. Right. And so it took a while, it took a little finessing, it took some discussions for them to agree on one logo. And when they did that, I thought, hey, you know what, let me just try this out. I knew from working at a marketing agency for like, I don't know, 13 years that we shouldn't really change logos too drastically. But I felt like I was still kind of new because it was only like my 5th or 6th year, that even if I made a change now, I could still like kind of um, recover from anybody who didn't recognize it anymore.
Sure.
And it was also around the time when Canova changed their logo. So when they changed it, I was like, oh, this is a good time to change it because I already had the logo in mind. I just didn't know when to put it out there. So yeah, when Canova changed it, I was like, oh, you know what? They simplified it. Maybe that's what we're all gonna do now. So I threw it out there. I changed it, but I was never 100% sure that I wanted to go with that simplified logo. I was just like, maybe it's too early because that logo was like 2 lines and a dot. Like the 2 lines were Lucas and Landon, their initials, and then the middle line plus the dot looks like a lowercase r, so for Royals. So I was like, maybe that's just too simple. Maybe people wouldn't get it, you know. And and just looking at that, you wouldn't know it's reptiles. You wouldn't know it's anything reptile related. But I just left it out there for a little bit, just to see what it would do, and I didn't really see any difference. I mean, I had a few people who commented and say, "Hey, cool logo," or I think it looks nice. I think it looks edgy. Um, of course, anybody who didn't like the logo probably wouldn't tell me that they didn't like the logo. They would just like keep their mouths shut, which is cool. But after a while, I was like, I just got to go back to it. I was never 100% sure of it, which is why like you saw the new logo in some spaces, but in other spaces you still saw the old logo. Like on my website, the old logo was still there. On Morph Market, it was still the old logo, and on YouTube, that little one that comes up on the bottom right of the screen, like you can hover over it and then it'll show up your
Oh
logo,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
you click on it to subscribe. That one was
Yeah.
still the old logo, right? And I
Gotcha.
think, yeah, I think my videos, the intro was still the old logo. The only places I put the new logo were like Facebook, Instagram, and maybe TikTok. Yeah. So I was just testing it out. I was just testing it.
Gotcha.
It was never meant to be like permanent. It was just testing the waters to see if people reacted better to it, to see if people even knew what it was. And I would say that there wasn't really much of a difference. So I just reverted back to the old logo.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. And so, did you have to get board approval to go back to the old logo?
Nah, that was took too long. It took too long, man. It took too long. Well, they've already approved the old logo, so I don't think it would have. I just didn't feel like. Well, number one, it takes too long, and number two, they approved the old logo, so I just didn't see. I didn't feel like they would mind if I just went back to the old logo. And to be honest, I went back to the old logo like a month ago, and they still haven't even noticed.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah.
Hey, what's your background? Like,
What's my
what field?
background?
Yeah, what field are you in?
Accounting, finance.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, my
Yeah.
wife is in accounting too, so
Okay, that's what's up. Yeah, definitely not like branding or marketing or anything like that.
oh, okay.
Like I took marketing classes as like
Mhm.
part of my major, and I shouldn't even say classes because it wasn't plural. Well, actually, I did take two, so it is plural, but definitely not a specialization by any stretch.
Oh, okay. You're very detailed. So I knew you had to been like engineering, working with numbers or science or something like that. I can tell you're very detailed in what you do and say. So
That's my inner dorky accountant coming out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, my wife is like that too. She's very detailed in certain things, and then other stuff she's like, whatever, whatever. I was like, all right. Oh, I left the stove on, whatever. It's like, no, man,
That's
that's
not
pretty messed
whatever.
up. That's pretty messed up.
That's funny.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's good. Like a bunch of my friends, my friends who are couples, they have a really good relationship with their wife too. And I look at what they do. It's like one is a numbers person and the other one's a science person. So I'm engineering, so it's kind of a science, and she's an accountant, so it's numbers. And then the other one's like a statistician with a chemist, and another one was with a programmer um, with another accountant. So it seems to like, I guess that's seems to balance out each other. It's good to have like your counterpart not always agree with you. There's a
Yeah,
saying. I forget
100%.
exactly what it goes. I forget exactly how it goes, but the saying is something like, if two people are always agreeing with each other, then one of them doesn't need to be there, right? Like you don't need, because you're always agreeing with each other.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely good to have a different take, right? Because,
yeah,
like, believe it or not, I'm not always right. So it's definitely good to have like a different take and have a balance and have somebody to bounce ideas off of and tell you when you're wrong and tell you when something might not make sense.
yeah, yeah,
For sure.
and, and somebody that you can trust.
Exactly.
They they're called truth sayers, right? Somebody
Yeah.
who tells you exactly how it is, um, regardless of your feelings, your emotions, right? It's
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
because
And
you
then
have
not only that, like it's somebody who you know really has, or
your
in a
best
lot of cases, they
interest.
got your best interest in mind.
Yeah,
Right. Right. That might
because
not be the case in every single relationship, but I know in mine that's the case.
yeah, because I've had like I've I failed at things, right, where I didn't get the job that I wanted or the position, and I've had friends who were like, oh man, don't worry, man, you were too good for it anyway. I'm like, what the hell are you saying, man? What does that even mean? It's like those are the ones that I don't want to hear. Like that's the support that I don't want to hear, because if I believed it, like if he said it so often where I believed that I was too good for that position, then I wouldn't be able to grow. Like I wouldn't be able to, you know, clean up what I was doing and better myself. I would just be arrogant, like, oh, I was too good for that job. But like, but my wife was like, oh, it's because your resume sucked.
So, on the subject of work and your profession and stuff like that, like you mentioned, like you had a story to tell about like
Oh,
work
going
from home
back.
and stuff
Oh,
like
going
that?
back. Yeah, yeah. So going back. So again, COVID, a blessing and a curse. I the job that I'm at right now, I work for a financial institution. It's a bank. All right, I made it sound like bigger than it really is. It's a bank, and I was originally hired as a consultant for 6 months, and this was 2019.
Okay.
And so I worked there as a consultant. And as a consultant, you have a key card, a badge to get into the different areas of the building. And the consultant badge doesn't get you everywhere. In fact, I had to renew it every 6 months. So my contract was supposed to be for 6 months. At the end, I was supposed to leave. However, um, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but they fired IBM and kept me on full time.
Oh, nice.
All right. So not I shouldn't say full time. They just extended my contract for another 6 months.
Okay.
And then they extended another 6 months. And I think there's some regulations where you can only use a contractor for 2 years. So by about 18 months or so, they had to bring me on full time. And that was in the middle of COVID. We were already working at home. And so my badge, I never got a full time employee badge. I still had the expired consultant badge, the freelancer badge. So I never got the new badge. And now they require us to go back 2-3 days. Well, I don't have a badge. So
So how
not
you
only
get it?
so not only do I not go in because I don't have a badge, I can't get in even if I do go, right? But I found out that they are pulling reports based on badge number to make sure that you're going in. Since I don't have a badge, there's no
You
badge
flying
number.
under the radar.
Yes, yes. Until they figure that out, I'm just gonna sit here in the comfort of my own home. Like I said, man, I gained so much time back because I get to just walk into the snake room. My kids go to school. One of them, I drop off. I mean, I make their breakfast, and then my wife drops him off when she goes to work. And then the younger one, he goes to school at 9, so I drop him off. And then after that, I'm just home by myself. I'm home. It's so great. It's so quiet. And I can pretty much work in any room I want because there's nobody there. I can talk as loud as I want in a meeting. I can watch TV. You know, it's so comfortable working from home. I'll tell you another story. There were people that I worked with in the beginning who like were very adamant about being in the office. They felt like you have to be there, you have to be present. Um,
Hmm.
like you have to have that face to face time with
Dinosaurs.
your friends. Yeah. And then when COVID hit and we were doing everything over Teams, over WebEx, those managers, those same people were like, "Oh, I kind of like this. I can take a nap when I want to." And I was like, "What? You know this conversation is recorded, right?" And I'm like, "You're a manager?" I was like, "Damn."
Yeah, like it's a lot of people that just refuse. I mean, some jobs obviously it presents like unique challenges to where you can't do it remotely, but then there's others that you can do completely remotely as long as you
Hmm.
got like a good internet connection and as long as you
Yeah,
got the equipment that you need. And
yeah.
but
I
it's
mean,
some folks that just like refuse to believe in the validity of like that sort of work environment. But times are changing. And like I hate to sound cliche by saying times are changing, but I mean at the end of the day they are, right? And so like
yeah,
that's becoming like a recruitment tool. And why wouldn't you want to have access to more than the talent pool that's in your respective area, right? Because before, so I live in Gainesville, right? So before, if you hired somebody, you brought somebody in, you wanted them to work there, they basically had to live in Gainesville or the surrounding area. But if you have the remote work option, then you know what I'm saying, like you're not limited to just that talent pool in Gainesville and the surrounding area. You got access to talent in California. You got access to talent in New York. You got access to talent in Colorado, wherever, you know what I mean? And so, like, why would you want to limit yourself and limit your organization, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I look at it, man. You just gotta embrace the future. Like, there's always going to be changes. There's always going to be technological changes, and you can either like cower from it and hide in the corner and say I don't want to do it, or you can stump your feet and be a dinosaur and get passed by, or you can embrace it and grab the bull by the horns and be a leader in that space. And I believe in the latter. That's just my take.
Yeah. I mean, we had to adapt to it. I mean, like, I know pre-COVID, there's all these naysayers. Everybody kind of looked down on these people who are telecommuting, but with the COVID, I mean, we had to adapt. The business had to keep functioning, right? We had to keep running the business, and so we all adapted to working from home, and we proved that it works. So now telling us to go back into the office, even though based on the charts that they're showing, you're seeing more productivity. So why are we going back to the office if you're seeing more productivity? To be honest, some of the people that I work with, even though I'm on a team by myself, but I still have to work with other team members, other directors and managers and others. Some of them have moved. Some of them were near here where I live, the towns, the neighboring towns and such. Some of them moved. Virginia, Florida, like they moved to areas that have nicer weather because they thought that telecommuting was the future, that was going to last forever.
Yeah.
So if I go into the office now, actually my friend was telling me earlier, just today, that he was told to go into the office just so he could communicate to his team on team. None of them were in the office.
Yeah, I do that all the time, bro.
None of them were in the office. So I'm like, what? I would be doing the same thing if I went in, right? Like all these people that I reached out to, that I had to communicate with, that I had to like, brainstorm or do whatever, they're not even around in the office anymore.
Yeah, bro. So, like real talk. Like sometimes I go into the office and don't see a person in 3D at all the entire time I'm in the office.
Right.
And I'm on Teams.
Yeah.
But I drove across town to get there to sit and meet with you virtually.
Yeah. So that friend that I was talking to, he was like, no one from my team is in the office. And I was like, yeah, why don't you just come to my house and work here then? Because I was listen, I'm 9 minutes away from the office and I refuse to go in.
Oh, that's dope, bro. I wish I was 9 minutes away. Like I'm probably like a legit 12 to 15 minutes away. Like if I just drove straight there and there was no traffic, but because of the traffic and the shitty infrastructure that we got, like I can be 45 minutes away from the office just by virtue of the traffic. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. See, you're wasting 45 minutes.
Yeah.
If you bill that 45 minutes on the company's timesheet, I think they'll have a different opinion about going in. That's what we had to do before. Like I said, like I was working 80 hours. Sometimes it's a legit 80 hours in the office, right? But other times it's time at a hotel, on a flight, traveling to the client's office. Those are like, sometimes it's like 120 hours a week because I'm doing all that traveling. Like when I'm sleeping at a hotel, I'm billing that time because I should not be in the hotel sleeping. I should be in my own bed sleeping. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not comfortable there. So you guys are paying for this. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, man. Hey, so what's your thoughts? I wanted to pick your brain on this. What's your thoughts on like some of the changes coming up with Morph Market?
You mean in terms of
like
ownership?
Say again?
In terms of ownership or the functions and features?
Yeah, so really both, right? Because with the change in ownership, some new change in the function and features are coming. So what's your thought on the change in ownership and some of the new things that are kind of coming up with that, like the increased advertising, the making the local shopping kind of function more prevalently, the increased plan capacities, the free animal management, like that was going to be that's a big one too, and then like the social media platform and the wholesale market, like all those kind of changes. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not concerned about it at all. In fact, I welcome it. I think change is good. I think even if it doesn't work out, we can learn from it. I mean, you can see what John has done with the recent Morph Market, where he added all these functions and features. I mean, it does kind of clutter it a little bit, but that's kind of the process, right? You come out with an idea, you put it in place, you see how it works, and then you adjust it, you fine tune it, right? We did that before, and we still do it now with the financial company that I'm at. Is we come out with these functions and features, and then we have data to see how the user's interacting with it, and based on that, we fine tune it, tweak it a little bit to make it easier. We have a user experience team who then looks at that data and says, you know what, this thing is actually causing problems. This is causing confusion. But if we move it to up here, we're going to get much better results. So same thing with Morph. I'm not concerned at all with the changes. I do like the fact that they're going to allow a higher limit per tier. I guess they're calling it tier, right? Because I
Yeah, I think it was
remember,
like increasing it by a third per tier.
yeah. So that's going to be great, and I think it makes sense because if you look at my growth, most other people, I'm assuming, is going to have a similar growth. What do you call it? The velocity of growth is going to be pretty similar. So we're all still producing maybe the same quantity of animals, but they're of higher caliber, and so you have to increase the price. And so I think they're seeing that. I think they're seeing that breeders are producing less or same number of animals, but the cost is increasing, the value is increasing, and so they have to adjust for that as well. So you can see that happening, and I kind of like it because before, when I was in the lower tier, I would get by with whatever the number of animals. Let's say it was 30, right? But let's just say 30, and I was producing all these animals that were like three, four, $500. I could get by on that tier, but then all of a sudden, I hit a jackpot, and I hit two jackpots. They're both male. I don't need two powerhouse males. I'm gonna sell one, and that one male is like $3,000. Now all of a sudden I have to change my tier just because of that one male that I want to sell. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I think it's all good. It's all good. I think what they're doing is great. I think cleaning up all those features, making it simpler. All the chats, I want to see what they're doing with the social media side of it, because they did say
Me
that
too.
the Facebook and all that, they don't allow sales, right? Or they frown upon it, but they're going to have a platform where that is allowed, and specifically for selling animals. The only piece that I can't figure out is, how do we draw new people into that platform that are not reptile people? Because before, on Facebook, if I post a picture, a lot of people are not reptile people and they still see the picture because I made it public.
Right.
So how do we draw in new people into the hobby and let them see the awesome animals that we're creating on this new platform that's specifically for reptile people, right? Like,
Sure.
no one else who doesn't know about reptiles would come and join that if they didn't already like reptiles to begin with.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So that's
Like,
I
I
think
don't
that's
think like some of those other like social media platforms would go away per se. Like there would still be like a piece of that there, but I do think it would be kind of cool depending on the execution of it, and then like with kind of like with the way that like AI is like helping so much in the coding space and being able to build something like I'm quite sure they can build something that's pretty robust and not have to have as many like coders and stuff on deck as they would have had to have like 3-4 years ago. And so like I feel like it's probably some ground they can make up in that space. So that was one of the interesting things to me too, in terms of like the social media platform. The other thing that stood out to me too was like kind of like the husbandry. Like I know they have some functionality in there right now,
yep,
but they don't really kind of have like all of the stuff that you really need to be like a
right.
true kind of like one-stop shop husbandry app. And so if they add some more of that stuff, I feel like for them as a company, that's going to be game changing, considering like so many people are already on that platform on a daily basis. Because I know for me, like, bro, it's crazy. Like, I go to Morph Market probably way too much, because sometimes I'll open up my phone, bro, and I'm going somewhere else, but my thumbs will start typing Morph Market just because they're so used to it. Like, oh, he put the phone in his hand, he must be going to Morph Market, and it happens like all the time. Like, and so like that right there just speaks volume about like how much I log into that site, and I know I'm not the only one, and so like I feel like they're in a position to really capitalize in that space by virtue of so many people already being there, and then to have the payments in it too. Like, that's another thing that can be potentially game changing. Shout out to Daniel Oliver. I appreciate the support, man. I really appreciate it. This is the way, the Mandalorian. But yeah, they got the potential to make it game changing. So it'll be interesting to see like which way they go with it. Even the wholesale aspect, they have wholesale capability for accredited buyers or whatever they call them. Like that's an opportunity. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing like where it goes. Like every upgrade or like new feature that he was talking about in that video, like everyone intrigued me to some level, to some degree. So it'll be interesting to see like kind of how it grows in the coming years and coming months.
Yeah,
Coming months
definitely,
and coming years.
definitely. Same thing with me. I agreed that I agree with all the updates that they wanted to make, and like you said, it's really going to be up to execution because they were all great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
With the husbandry, with the breedings, the projects, you know, the clutches, like all that stuff where we can track parents and lineage. They're working on it. You can see that there's already some features in there where you can put in your breeders. You can plan out the pairings and things like that. That's one of the reasons why I'm hesitant to get onto Husbandry Pro or Clutch. Nothing against them. I didn't use them, so I don't have anything to critique. But with my 2 decades in the technology field, and now the last 2 years working as an analyst, like I work with data a lot, right? And so data is the key. Like
Yeah.
whoever has the data is going to be the one you go to. And right now, Morph Market has so much more data than the other two applications. Now,
Yeah.
given the other two applications are solely focused on the husbandry and the projects and the pairings and keeping track of the animals, they're solely focused on that. But what happens? Like just imagine what would happen if Morph Market had the same capabilities. I think that we would all funnel into Morph Market.
I think so too. I'm
Right?
not gonna even lie.
Right? Because if you think about it, if I have like one of those applications and I put all my pairings in there, then I have to do it again into Morph Market just so that my customers can see what the lineage of that animal that I'm trying to sell. I know there's capabilities in both of those other applications where you can export it, you can send that data to your other person. But
What if
what
it's
happens?
already there?
But if I have Husbandry Pro and you have Clutch, there's no API right now that allows us to send data to each other through across that application. And if everybody's funneling to Morph Market to sell their animals anyway, why would for me, like it doesn't make sense for me to have half of my data in one of these applications and then all my sales in a different application. I would want them all together in one application.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's exactly where I was going with it. It's like you're already there.
Yeah.
So if they've got like that same functionality, it's going to be a hard sell to have your stuff elsewhere, right? Because why would you go through all those extra steps? Like, and I don't mean that it's like disrespect, because like right now, all my data is in Husbandry Pro, and I love Husbandry Pro, and I've said that many times on the show, right? And so like one of the reasons why I'm not tracking a lot of stuff in Morph Market is just because it doesn't have like all the functionality I need. But
Not yet.
If it did,
If it did,
it's
exactly.
like, oh,
I mean, I would love to see all three of those kind of work in unison in concert. You know, maybe there's like an API where like whatever you put in Husbandry Pro can
that would be
automatically
dope.
be ported into Morph Market. I think
That
that
would be
would be
dope.
great. But of course, like these are separate entities. They're all gonna want to play chicken with each other to see who wins. Like, you know, it's like a merger. You know, unless they can build up a partnership, it would be like a merger. Somebody has to eat the other person.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it'll
maybe
be
they can come
interesting.
to some sort of agreement. But yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see how all that plays out.
Hmm. And whoever merges with Morph Market first is probably going to win if Morph Market doesn't just build everything in itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. I agree, bro.
Yeah, because
100%.
there was somebody, I forget who it was, um, had this concern, because you know Clutch is a sponsor of some of these shows. Morph Market is a sponsor of some of these shows, and somebody had both Canova and Morph Market as their sponsor.
Oh, word.
So they're,
Both Canova and Morph Market or Clutch and Morph Market.
well, Clutch is by Canova,
Yeah, I know,
right?
and like some other folks too.
Yeah, so Canova is affiliated with Clutch,
Right.
right? And so there was a question like, is there a conflict of interest in having both as your sponsor? Because now there's an overlap with what they're trying to do, right? They're both competing for the same, not exactly the same, but there's an overlap. They're both competing for a segment of the market.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I was like, oh, I wonder who's going to win. And then that kind of got me spinning into like, well, it really depends on who has the data. And Morph Market has the data.
Yeah, that's another thing that I would like for Morph Market to offer is like the data to other people. But maybe they hold up, maybe they just keep holding it close to the vest as like a leverage tool. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
What do you mean offer to other people? Offer what?
Like
Like which
right
kind of
now,
data?
say again.
Like what kind of data do you think it would be advantageous to offer to other people?
Like right now they got like they can track like all the sales data, so you can in theory you can look and say, hey, over X amount of time Pod Gene sold, it was this amount and they sold at this price, or at least this listed price. That's not necessarily the price that the customer paid. And so they've got all of that, and so you can see kind of all those trends and stuff like that. And so there could be some use cases for that data,
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna offer it um, like just to hobbyists and little businesses. I think most people might not really even know what to do. Like I'm an analyst now, so I can probably go through it. And before this job, I had some like data mining experience, so I can probably go through it. But like, not a lot of people actually has the background to analyze data. Funny thing before I dive too deep into that, uh, I learned as an analyst that I can take the same set of data and manipulate it to help you prove a point or to negate you. Like it's the same set of data, which is really interesting, right? Like it's the same data. I just transform it to
right?
support you or to negate you. It, it's it's really it kind of blew me away because there were studies. I mean, like even recently that one guy, what's his name, Liam, who did like,
Oh, to do with
yeah,
the
the
racks
rec,
versus enclosures.
yeah. So when he said, "Oh, there's data to support this," and in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna need to see that data. Like I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying he's manipulating data because the data could have already been transformed to him. Like somebody already like analyzed it and then gave it to him. Maybe. But it's just funny that like my mindset is different now, just because I
Yeah,
can manipulate the data and have two completely different perspectives
yeah,
off
100%. That's
off
one
the
of the
same data.
reasons why I haven't even spoke on it that much is because, to be honest, I haven't looked at the data that he's looked at, and I haven't done like a respectable amount of like research and fact checking and comparing different things to like really have like as educated of an opinion on it as I
Mhm.
feel like I would need to kind of come out for or against what he said. So I to be honest, I kind of like sat on the sideline with it a lot.
Mhm.
Um, do you have any specific thoughts about that, or are you kind of doing the same?
Um, I I I have some thoughts on it. I found his presentation to be very interesting and somewhat helpful. But I know I kind of sidetracked it. Let's go back to to what. Can you just re-ask that question earlier from earlier?
Which one was it? We
It,
got
it,
sidetracked for sure.
yeah, I got sidetracked because we started talking about data, and then I wanted to tell you that I can take the same data and turn it into different ways. But what was the question? What were we trying to answer?
So we were talking about Morph Market and the
Yeah.
new functionality that they offer, and how
Oh,
if they
why would
start
they
offering,
offer to other people, right?
yeah.
Okay. I I know that just speaking to John, um, prior to his most recent announcements, he it didn't sound like he was going to offer it. Um, Certainly, if there was a need, he would be open to possibly, exporting that data depending on what you needed, if there was a true need. But what he wanted to do with that data is, obviously we know how many pies are sold. He knows how many pies are sold. He knows the prices that they were sold at, and he can break it down to, orange dream pies, yellow belly enchi pies, yellow belly orange dream enchi pies, and what the costs were. He has all the historical data. What he was going to do, at the time when I was speaking to him, he was going to, in the price field, or next to the price field, there was going to be a suggested price based on historical data.
Yeah, that's what actually where I was about to go with it. Not the suggested price functionality, but just like a use case for the data. It's just like looking at like very recent data of like current prices. So instead of having to click through and figure out like, hey, how much are people pricing this at? Like you can just look at the data and say, hey, this is where I want to be. But go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Right, but he wasn't even going to have you look at the data.
You're just
He
gonna
was just going to
spoon feed it to
analyze
you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and spoon feed it to you so that you can probably see, like, once you put in your animal, whether it's a hatchling or a breeder or whatever, and you put in the genetic traits that it has, when you get to the part where it asks for price, he was going to suggest a price, or at least give you a range, right? Like the lowest one sold for 500 and the most expensive one sold for 750. Like he was going to give you a range or something like that. At least give you some kind of idea where your price should fall.
I like that. So, and maybe y'all didn't get into like the details of how that suggested price would be calculated. But is it going to factor in sex, and is it going to factor in kind of like
Well, he has all
recent
that data.
prices?
He has all that data. So
Yeah, so I would imagine he would use it.
he would, yeah, I think he
Yeah,
would use it.
I mean
Um,
because like a dreamsicle female now versus a dreamsicle female like 3 years ago might be a different
mhm.
price. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we could do so much with the data. I mean, we can, like I said, I'm an analyst now, so I know we can do a lot. I mean, we don't have to look at it from the beginning of time. He could just look at it from 6 months ago,
Yeah.
right? And then just give you a suggested price, or at least a suggested range. I don't know if he's still going to do that with the change of ownership now, but yeah, certainly, I just wanted to touch on that because, like, just to explore that example that you gave a little bit more.
That's dope. Um, yeah, that would be, and maybe they'll still come out with that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
They have a suggestion box or support email. So if enough of us want it and we ask for it, they're going to see a need.
Yeah.
Hint,
Hook us
hint,
up.
nudge, nudge.
The people have spoken. We can send them
Yeah.
a clip of this too.
Hmm.
The people have spoken. All right, bro. So we're coming up on 2 hours, man. The time is flown. Like I didn't even realize we had been on it for 2 hours. So that's what's up. Yeah. So that lets me know good conversation right there. Before I let you get out of here and enjoy the rest of your night, I do have some wrap up questions for you.
Oh no. Oh no.
And so these kind of random questions. And so the first one is, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Anywhere in the world. I haven't traveled enough to know where I really want to go. I did hear that. Well, actually, I went to Costa Rica on a
Okay.
work-related trip, um, and this was many, many years ago. Like we went. It was a work-related trip. It just came up suddenly. I went there, um, and I went there to work. I went there. I was in meetings. I was talking to the team, trying to get them, understanding of what this project meant for the company, because the project was going to be uh, a third of the company's revenue. So it was a very big project, right? And we had like, I don't know, 20 clients, but this one client that we have, it was going to be a third of the revenue. So I went there to work, and I worked my ass off, and it was a it was like a 2-day business trip to that branch in Costa Rica. I took one picture out of a taxi cab. It was kind of like their Uber, right? I took one picture and I posted on Facebook, and everyone in the Philadelphia office, that's the office that I was supposed to work at, that I always go to,
Hmm.
they were furious. They thought I took a vacation. Just off of one picture out of a cab. They thought I was on vacation. They were like, oh, we couldn't find you. Like, you weren't coming to our meetings and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you could have just sent me an email. You didn't even set up a meeting with me. I was here working the entire time in Costa Rica, trying to make sure that everyone's on board to to that we have the staff and properly staff the team in order to take on the application, to take on the project and build the application. So yeah, so they were furious. But my time there was fantastic. They call it a slice of heaven. But and again, this was several years ago. Now, recently, another coworker went for actual vacation, not for a business trip, and they said, like they sent me pictures. I mean, the picture, like there was these mountains and cliffs, and these hotels are built on these mountains. They're overhanging. It was like what you see in movies and advertisement, where there's a pool that is like hanging in the middle of the air, and you can dive in and you basically look down the cliff. It was like this clear. I mean, it's beautiful. So
Nice.
based on my limited travel experience, I would have to say Costa Rica.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. That's what's up. And a nice story to go along with it. That's dope. Yeah, that's funny. They thought you was on vacation.
One picture, just
It's
one
like
picture. They were furious.
this.
And it's funny because I came back. I went on this trip with my VP. Okay, like I was a director. I had my manager. I had another colleague that was same level of director, and our VP, and our senior VP. Okay, so like there's like 6 of us, I think, all went to Costa Rica on a business trip. When I came back, all those people were furious, and they complained to my VP and to my senior VP, and and those guys were like, "Shut up." He was working with us. I was there.
We're all on vacation. All right, bro. So next one. So if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh my God, dead or alive. Never really thought about this. Uh, you ever watch those movies where like people go back in time, and then everybody says, it's a bad idea, because you're going to change history, or you might find out something in history and change the future, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So obviously, if I could have dinner or have a meal with somebody that was dead, I may change history, or at least find something else. So I don't think I would want to do too much in that area. I know that when I was in college, I took a class in Shakespeare, and I learned something about William Shakespeare, that that he might be gay. Okay, and and until now, like nobody really knows if his sexuality, whether he was straight or gay. He did have a family, um, so for some reason I was very curious at that time if what his sexuality was. And also I read that at that time it was kind of taboo to be gay.
Hmm.
But then there's all these literature, or not literature, but evidence of an older official having a younger partner, but they just called it like a partner, like somebody that he works with, like a staff, right? So I think just to satisfy my curiosity, I would have a conversation with William Shakespeare to see and just settle once and for all
Bro,
what the
what's
hell
up?
was going on back there, man. What was going on at that time? So that's one. Again, I'm just, I'm in the STEM field. I just want to satisfy my curiosity. I don't know. I can't pick a name for the second person, but it would be somebody who was involved in building the pyramids
Okay.
for obvious reasons. But how the hell did you build it? That's all I want to know. That's it. And I probably would just keep that. If I found out, I would just keep it close to my chest. I don't want to change things presently, Let's see, who else? This is hard. Maybe Jesus. And
Okay.
I don't really need to have a conversation with him. I just want to look at him. I just want to see what color he is, his complexion. That's all. That's it.
Gotcha. All right, so the next one, bro. If you won $10 million tomorrow, how would you invest it?
Can I get those in ones? No.
It's gonna take you a while to spend those, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if I put that into an account, I would be accruing interest and spending it, so it would be just a continuous flow.
Yeah.
Passive income is what we call it, right? I mean, right now, the investing in property is kind of tough right now. But I mean, I would probably find my way to do it. I've always wanted to, like, we have some property, but they're just single units. And I heard that the real way to do it, if you want to invest in property, is to purchase a multi-unit building, like with 8 units or 10 units or 12 units, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I want to do, what I would do if I had the opportunity. Not all of it, though. I'll put some away, in the trust fund. What do we call it? What do we call it when we generational wealth, right? To have that generational wealth for the kids and pass that on for grandkids and future generations. Put some away. I'm getting all serious now, man. This is. Of course, I want to buy some steaks. There we go.
You said some snakes.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Buy some
First,
steaks.
I thought you said some snakes. I was like, wait, what?
What? Some what?
Some steaks. I thought that's what you said at first. I was like, wait, what?
Maybe I said that. I did just eat a couple for dinner, so yeah, maybe I said that. Freudian slip there. But yeah, I mean, if I had that much money, obviously I wouldn't want to work. I would want to do something that doesn't feel like work, and keeping and breeding these animals certainly doesn't feel like work. It feels like heaven, man.
If you do get some steaks, though, you got to pull up in Texas, man. I can't even remember the name of the restaurant, but I was in Arlington, and man, I had the best steak of my life in Arlington.
Really?
Bro.
What was it about it? What was about that steak?
Bro, it was just so like juicy and flavorful, bro. I got like a ribeye cooked medium. Ooh. I think it was a bone-in ribeye too. And so like when the bone-in ribeye, that's just extra flavor, bro. It was so damn good, bro.
It's extra juicy, just right around the bone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so definitely, man. I can't wait to go back to Texas.
All right. Good to know. Definitely.
So my favorite cut of steak is ribeye for sure. Like
me too.
Hands down. Daniel Oliver asked me what's the best cut. Hands down ribeye for me. What's your favorite cut of steak?
Ribeye, man. Ribeye.
Yeah,
it used to be,
bro. Like
it used to be a T-bone until I found out it used to be a T-bone. Because a T-bone is one side is something.
One side is fillet and like one side is strip.
Yeah, one side is a strip, and it used to be that. Until I found out about the ribeye, and then I was like, oh, why was I not eating this before. So yeah, definitely ribeye. It is a little fatty though. I gotta admit, it doesn't help
That's where
with
the flavor come in.
it doesn't it doesn't help with the health, but it tastes really good going down.
It's at least got to taste good going down. But
Yeah,
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 man,
yeah,
ribeye
yeah.
hands down. It's not even close. Not
Yeah,
even close.
my wife was like, "Why don't you cut out the fat?" And I said, "YOLO." That was my response. And that was it. She just like gave me a bad look and then just like, yeah, whatever.
All right. So, what's one question you wish I would have asked you, and how would you have answered it?
Ooh, you know, I mean, my mind right now is fixated on these animals, on reptiles. So the only thing that comes to mind is I wish you asked me what my next purchase was gonna be,
All
or
right.
what I
What's
hope
that
my
gonna
next. I don't know, man. I gotta go take my yoga class. I'll see you later.
be?
No, no, it's like what? It's like 10 o'clock, and nobody has yoga class. Um, I'm actually getting into dwarf retakes.
Oh, okay. That's what's
Yeah,
up.
dwarf retakes, and what I want specifically is a super phantom dwarf retake, which is a leucistic snake. It's all white with blue eyes. So essentially it's a bell, but it's a retake. And the reason is I already have a what is it called? Oh my god, these names. Um, Orange Ghost Stripe Super Dwarf retake.
Oh, they have an orange ghost in them.
Yeah, it's
Super
called
doors.
Orange. Yes, Super Dwarf. It's called Orange Ghost Stripe, not just Ghost. It doesn't really have the ghost look like our ball pythons. It's got an orangish color and it's got a stripe down the back. That's I think what gives it the name Orange Ghost Stripe. I have no idea why the word ghost is in there. It doesn't. I don't know. Maybe it fades it out a little bit. I don't know. But it's interesting because the orange ghost stripe is a recessive mutation. All right. The phantom is a codon mutation, but somehow
So orange ghost stripe is one mutation.
it's one
Just
mutation, but it's recessive. So you need two copies of
two
the gene.
copies of it. Mm-hmm.
Phantom is a codon, right? So if you have a super phantom, that's two copies of phantom, but it's a codon because one copy shows some difference. And
Mm-hmm.
then the two of them, it's kind of like lesser, right? You have lesser and then you have super lesser, which makes it a
True.
bell.
True.
Actually, it's just like phantom in ball pythons because we have phantom as well. But what's interesting in the retic is even though one is a codon and one is a recessive, there is a allelic reaction between those. So what happens when you get a phantom het orange ghost stripe is the animal, when it hatches out, it's completely white, just like a bell. But as it grows, it starts to get spots. It starts to get black spots. So you
Okay.
end up with a white snake with black patches.
Oh, that's dope.
Have you heard of the cow retake?
That's the cow, right?
That's the
Yeah.
cow, man.
Okay.
That's the cow. Yeah. So I think Garrett Hurdle is the only one that has done it correctly, where it's at least 50% super dwarf blood. So in the retic world, if you want to consider an animal to be dwarf or super dwarf, it has to have at least 50%. You have to be able to trace 50% of that bloodline to dwarf or super dwarf in order to consider it a dwarf or super dwarf. Otherwise, it's just considered mainland. So Garrett has done it. I think he made a pair, a male and a female, cow, super dwarf, retics, and guess money is not the motivational driver here. We can have a conversation about why I want to do this, but just for interest, for entertainment, guess how much he sold that animal for? A cow super dwarf retic.
40K.
Oh, you're so generous. I think it was 20.
20.
Yeah, it was 20.
So you saying guess made me want to just go high.
Yeah.
20, okay.
hmm Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we want to do it is to add value to the hobby, right? Because there's not a lot of there's a lot of people who may want a retic, number one, but the mainland, the size kind of throws people off, right?
Sure.
Because everybody hears that it's going to grow 16, 18 feet. I mean, they might not. A lot of them probably won't get that big, but there's potential to get that big. And so I think that puts people off. So if we're able to create the same thing, but in a much smaller size, that's going to draw more people into the hobby and give
Right.
people the opportunity to have a beautiful animal that they want and be able to keep them in a relatively maintainable size.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We can't even have retics in Florida now.
Yeah, I know. You got to move.
Yeah,
You got to move. And you can telecommute, so you can move anywhere.
this is true. But yeah, 100%. Yeah, we got folks that work with me. Not to get too far off the topic, but yeah, we got folks in on the West Coast. We got folks in the Midwest. We got folks all over the place. So yeah, we definitely geographically dispersed. So it gives you that opportunity.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Kai. So, bro, this has been amazing, bro. It's been great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, man, and chat with us, man. It really means a lot. Like I said, I was looking forward to this all week. Definitely looking forward to picking your brain. Is there anything that you want to tell the listeners about what's on deck for Lucas Landon, or things to keep an eye out for?
Oh, it's going to be a sad story. I don't know if you guys are ready for it. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Everything's good. I've been away from YouTube for a while, just taking a break, but I'll be back on there with new and interesting projects. Probably change up the format a little bit.
Okay.
Again, it's all part of just with the change in times, just adapting, adjusting with the way social media is going. So yeah, everything's good. I want to take this time to thank everyone here for coming, for watching this, and if you're watching this on replay, make sure you give it a like, give it a thumbs up, comments. Again, just thanks, Mike, for having me. I enjoyed it, and hope to come back someday.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely want to catch up for round two, and definitely everybody in the chat, man. +1 on the thanks, man. Thanks to everybody who took the time out of their day to come hang out with us live. Thanks to those who catch the replay later on. Thanks to all the audio-only listeners. Thanks to everyone for the support. Don't forget to show the channel some love. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, definitely hit that notification bell. Make sure you follow Kai. Like I said, his links are in the description of this video, so make sure you go out and follow if you're not already following, and show some love. Appreciate all the support. Definitely be sure to check us out next week and check out all the podcasts that we got. Really appreciate everybody coming out. Can you hang back for a sec?
No problem.
Yes, sir. So thank you, everyone, again. Thank you for coming out. Be blessed. Peace.